Today we're driving the 2024 Aston Martin DBX 707. 707 stands for 707 PS, which is kind of British horsepower. This actually has 697 American horsepower, so it's a little more powerful, a little bit more garish looking outside than the standard DBX. The 707 should be a force to be reckoned with on the street. We're on air suspension. We have a 4-liter twin-turbo V8 up front, 9-speed automatic wet clutch transmission. Of course, it's 4-wheel drive. This is the Aston Martin SUV. First time ever being in a DBX, so you guys are going to be getting some of my very first impressions on this drive today. Carbon ceramic brakes at all 4 corners, $242,000 starting price, $269 grand as tested. We'll put all the details and info in the description. You see what I mean about this front grille. It just looks a bit fish-faced. And of course, that's for improved cooling for that twin-turbo V8, but it's just a little bit much. 22-inch wheels on massive tires, massive brakes. Kind of a funky-looking ducktail rear end here. Rowdy exhaust for that 4-liter V8 as well. Pop the tailgate from down below. Quite a bit of room in the back of this DBX. We even get a compact spare tire that you can inflate. Look at that. I love some of these load floors here. There's even a button here to lower or raise the rear suspension. Top of the back seat. It is just starting to rain here in Southern California. Pretty spacious back here. Look at the door strut in there. What a beautifully complicated design. Bit of a tint to the rear windows. It's much more spacious back here than I remember the old Aston Martin Rapide was. We get an armrest, cup holders, rear heated and ventilated seats with rear climate controls. Lots of physical controls in this DBX, but it's a bit of a mishmash. A combination of Mercedes bits from the infotainment, some of the switchgear just kind of repurposed and refinished for Aston Martin, and of course this 4-liter twin-turbo V8 is from an AMG. Really nice heft to those doors. Let's take a look at that V8. Oh, of course, this being British, the hood release is on the passenger side. There he is. Front doors swing open and close pretty easily. Rear doors have a bit more of a resistance to them. Take some effort to close them. Pretty cool looking clamshell hood here. There it is, hand built in Britain. Very powerful, very fast, tons of torque, great responsiveness. A hot V setup. Let's hop inside, talk a little bit more about the interior, and we'll see how it drives. Quite a spectacle of an SUV. This is painted in Quasar blue. We have some blue stitching in the interior. Kind of a previous gen Mercedes user interface here. We've got this touch pad with this scroll wheel, slightly recolored to fit this Aston Martin. On first impressions, this is all a little bit messy, but I'm sure once you live with it, it'll be just fine. You've got a button here to make your exhaust louder, drive mode selection. We're probably just going to put this into Sport. Maybe Sport Plus. Ooh, I like that. Some storage here underneath, wireless charging, nice big infotainment screen. We've got wipers that come out from the center and a huge panoramic moonroof. Before we get started with this drive, I would like to thank the sponsor of this video, Lewis Jewelers. This week I'm wearing a Tudor Black Bay Chrono, and I feel like it fits the category of this car very well. It's sporty but luxurious, bit of a bargain Rolex Daytona. It's got a date, it's got a chronograph, a 45-minute timer. It's actually a pretty cool looking watch. This is part of Lewis Jewelers pre-owned selection that's always kind of changing and shifting. Lewis Jewelers is located in Ann Arbor, Michigan. They are your authorized dealer for many elite brands like Omega, Tudor, Breitling, Tag Heuer, and Grand Seiko. They have a pretty awesome selection of watches in store or online. Reach out to Lewis Jewelers in person or online at lewisjewelers.com and ask for DK. Let him know that TheTopher sent you, and he'll hook you up with any special offers that might apply to what you are looking for. A great company to deal with for your next luxury watch purchase. We'll be cycling in and out of some more watches in the coming weeks and months from Lewis Jewelers, so stay tuned. We'll show you guys what we have next on the wrist. Let's go drive this Aston Martin DBX 707. Drive is a bit of a reach over there. Ooh, it sounds good. Fixed paddles behind the steering wheel. I do miss when cars had analog gauges instead of digital gauges. This gauge cluster just it looks terrible in my opinion. It's just all the wrong colors. It's not designed very well. There's just nothing special about it other than the fact that it is digital. This thing is fast. Very flat around corners. It turns in really sharply. Kind of a strange turn signal sound. And kind of a synthetic noise to this engine too. We're going to put the dampers into their mid setting. Super quick shifts there. Love the feel of these metal paddle shifters. They have a satisfying click. Very responsive gearbox. Dynamically, for an SUV, this is excellent. Hold the right paddle to put you back into drive. Since we are in Sport Plus, it's going to give us a few more downshifts. Let's calm things down a little bit. Put it into GT mode. I like this gauge cluster a little bit better. That's slightly better, but still. Remember when we used to have metal analog gauges in Aston Martins, and they just looked so cool. They had the reverse sweep with the tack and the speedo. We still have that, but it's just not the same. Steering has a nice heft to it. Feels really direct, really sharp. Seats are very well bolstered. A lot of support here. Lots of adjustability too. Brakes are pretty easy to modulate considering they are enormous carbon ceramics. Awesome throttle response. Back into Sport Plus. It is freaking fast. Sometimes close to 700 horsepower. Surprisingly, it doesn't feel that quick at a big heavy SUV. This puts it down. This delivers. The front end is so sharp. This is just devouring back roads. This might be the best handling SUV we've driven on the channel. It feels so composed. Of course, predictably, a Prius. This DBX feels like it would be at home on a racetrack, and that's not usually something you feel from a high-performance SUV. This is impressive. I wasn't expecting it to be this good dynamically. This feels like it would have more performance than a lot of recent Aston Martins. Yeah, surprisingly, that's the highlight. I'm not blown away by the interior craftsmanship, the stitching, the leather, the materials in here. They're all just a bit meh, especially for the price point. But the way this thing goes and handles, that's where the money's going in this DBX. Of course, it's very comfortable, it's very usable, it's an SUV. You can take the whole family around in this with ease. It even has 5 seats. If you want something a little bit different, and maybe not in 707 trim, a little bit prettier than the rest of the SUVs out there, this DBX is probably a pretty solid option. And I'm sure the 707 really cranks things up a notch. This takes it up to a whole new level of insanity. That Bentley up ahead of us is no slouch, and I assume Charlie's not pushing that hard today, but it just seems like it is devouring it in a straight line. Kicking the tail out there on throttle. Nice to feel a rear biased all-wheel drive system. Ugh. Not sure about that noise. This V8 sounds fantastic in an AMG. Not quite doing the same thing for me here in this DBX today. Let's quiet it down a little bit. We'll go into sport mode. We've just gotten a brief taste of this today on the road, but first impression, it doesn't seem like there's a whole lot of other SUVs out there that can do what this does. It even has an off-road mode, which raises that air suspension all the way up, gives you a bunch of ground clearance. I doubt you'll get very far on these 22s, but still a cool option. Maybe that Bentley does have some legs. That's impressive. I will say, straight line entertainment factor is high. It's impressive what this thing can do. Let's roll into it. Just do a quick 0 to 60. Awesome. Does have launch control. Not really the place or time to do it. The automatic programming with this 9-speed is actually quite good too. I don't feel like I always need to dip into the paddles to get what I want out of this gearbox. All the control weights are excellent. I love the steering weight. Again, brakes are easy to modulate. Good initial bite, but not too much. Steering is just razor sharp. And some of the noises coming out of this 4-liter twin-turbo V8 are entertaining, especially all the boost sounds. There's just so much air rushing through it. And it can really cover a lot of ground. Pretty quick steering rack too. Suspension seems pretty well composed. Sport Plus, not too stiff. It just maintains really good body control. This drives like a sports car. Bit of a cliche to say in an SUV, but something that's honestly rarely true. You're just higher up. You can see over things. Aston Martin has gone and done what so many others have tried and only barely succeeded at. Traction control light flashing there. This is fun. Is it as desirable as a sports car as some of Aston Martin's lower slung GT coupes? Probably not, but the form factor, the practical nature of something like this, along with the performance, does make it a pretty cool option in this segment. And I will say, a cooler alternative to something from the Germans that probably everyone else already has. I mean, how many DBXs do you see out there? And it's still an Aston Martin at the end of the day. And Aston Martins are cool. There's also a very nice individual mode here that you can configure. A number of different parameters. Looks like everything is just in GT. And suspension, GT, steering. I like the steering. Let's put the drive in Sport Plus. We'll put the exhaust in Sport Plus. And we'll leave the suspension soft. Like that's how just about every individual mode is configured. All right, guys, that's going to be a quick drive with some initial impressions on the 2024 Aston Martin DBX 707. Very cool SUV. It's almost there. It's very, very close. Dynamically, pretty perfect. Wouldn't mind it sounding a little bit better. Wouldn't mind a slightly different spec. Not a fan of the way it looks necessarily in this form, but it is a special thing. And that's not something we can usually say about SUVs. They're usually just not that special. This kind of breaks the mold, so to speak. All right, we'll leave you guys there. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you in the next video. Take care. Hope you enjoyed that drive. This rear diffuser, just nuts. Creating both downforce and lift there with rear spoilers and diffusers. I mean, I'm sure it needs the big fish-faced grille to provide enough cooling for this thing, but what an exaggerated design.